Hey everybody, welcome to 30 Ways to Happy Days. I am Alana Yvonne with Truly Great Life, and we are on way number 26. Now this way number 26 is also the last of the character strengths that I've been talking about for the last 24 ways. So if you haven't listened to ways 1 and 2, those are kind of the foundation for the next 24. We're now on the last one, 24th character strength. And then I'm going to have a couple more 4, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Yeah, 4 more. I can do math, I promise. Ways that are just going into some different other areas. But the bulk of this has been about those tools in your pocket that you may not even know you have. These character strengths that every single human being on the planet has. And the only question is, are we aware of them? Are we using them? So I talk a little bit more about that in ways 1 and 2. So do be sure to check those out if you haven't already listened to them. Okay, so here we go. Drum roll for the final character strength. Way number 26. And you all know this one, and you've all heard of this one all the time or a lot lately. It's kindness, right? This character strength, this trait of kindness. All right, so already you might be rolling your eyes. You might be, skipping ahead or getting out of the recording. This is something that we know intuitively. On some level, this is something that we've experienced at least once in our lifetime. This is something that we have been at least once in our lifetime. All right, and this is something that hopefully you feel you are able to receive and give more and more and more as time goes on. And there are many different ways to do this, but let's start, as always, with the definition. Okay, so first of all, how do you define kindness? What is kindness to you? Okay, so again, a lot of this is going through the positive psychology lens. And the definition of kindness that I'll share here is basically a compassion, a care, a generosity with others, doing for others, being there for others. All right? What do you think kindness looks like? What do you think of when you hear the word kindness, or when you hear those other words, generosity, compassion, caring, doing for others? How does that land for you? How are you kind to your family? How are you kind to yourself? How are you kind to your friends, classmates, colleagues, neighbors, a stranger on the street, the person who cuts you off on the road, the person who's taking your order if you're at a restaurant, salesperson if you're shopping? What does kindness look like to you in those situations? And if you're having a hard time with that, think about a time where you felt you were not treated kindly. That might be easier to come up with. What did that feel like? What did that look like? So what would the opposite of that be? Now, we can never control other people. We can never control what other people are going to do or how they're going to be. We can have the most control over ourselves, right? On some level. Really, the only thing we can control is our reaction to things that happen to us, our decisions and how we act in the world and with others. So, first of all, with kindness, do you want to be a more kind person? Do you want to have more kindness in your life? As you can probably guess, this is one of the biggest ways to happier days, because when you're on the receiving end of kindness, it feels great. And when you are able to do a kindness or be kind with someone else, it also can feel great. There's nothing wrong with feeling great about doing, a kindness for someone. So does the thought that being kind is seen as weakness? Sometimes people have an association where being kind is seen as a weakness. It's seen as a sign of weakness, and being harsh or difficult or strict or whatever word you come up with, that represents strength. So where does strength and weakness come into this for you vis-a-vis kindness? When you were on the receiving end of a kindness, did you think that person was being weak? I mean, if you took advantage of a situation because they were kind, I can see where that might be conceived of as a weak attribute. But can you think of a time where you were treated with a kindness, you can almost look at it like that's a vulnerability on the behalf, on the part of the other person giving you a kindness. When you give a kindness or are kind with another person, is that making you feel vulnerable? And if it's received, how did that make you feel? If it's rejected, how did that make you feel? Is it possible that you have story or history or beliefs that might be limiting your ability or desire or awareness of what kindness could be as a strength? So does the thought that kindness is even a strength rub against you the wrong way, right? Like, does that just not land well with you? And that's something maybe to think about. Some of you may be listening to this and like all of them, these can seem very obvious for many of us, okay? But these are reminders in case you needed it or wanted it. It's a reminder for me too. So with a kindness, are you already coming from a place where you know that that is one of your greatest superpowers? That when you have that ability to do a kindness for someone else, to be kind, to share a kind word or a kind smile, that is already like bumping up the positive energy in the universe or the world, or if that's too woo for you. Like, you feel good, they feel good. It's that micro moment of love that we talked about in the way about love, right? There's a lot of complaints that we can have about the state of the world. It's very easy to complain about how people are, how people behave, how people react. And it's not to say that it's not valid, right? If there's an egregious behavior or a tragedy or a wrongdoing. But somewhere in life we get to ask, how can I be, again, all these ways to being your best self, what you imagine, at the end of your days, at the end of your day when you lay your head on your pillow at night, where you can go to bed with an easy heart, that you did your best in your dealings with people, in your dealings with situations, in a self-compassionate way as well. So lots of here around kindness. I'm kind of jumping right into, what I think are kind of the deeper questions. When we talk about kindness with kids, we can explain it to them as, you like helping others, you enjoy taking care of others. If it's not other people, maybe it's like other, like a pet or an animal. You're generous with your time, you're generous with your sharing of your toys. You can say that that's a kindness. But if you work with kids or if you have kids, ask them to describe what they think it means to be kind. What do you think it means to be kind? Are you being fair to yourself or to others the way you're defining it? I don't know. It's, again, with everything where we feel we're not being met where we want to be met, or people aren't the way they should be. Like, how's your measuring stick? What are you measuring that by? Is there room here for generous assumptions and forgiveness, right? These are other things that we've talked about. How can you be kind to yourself today? Even if maybe you started the day not being so kind to someone you interacted with or to yourself, how can you turn that around? It's never too late. Sometimes we think that because we started the day a certain way, it's going to end that way. It doesn't have to be. And if you're like, yeah, right, I invite you to experiment and to play around with it and just see. Try doing something kind for someone else. Try doing something kind for yourself. Think of someone else's needs. If you can put yours aside for just a moment and think of what someone else might need and helping them, doing something kind for them. Just something to think about. We hear a lot about kindness in the workplace, kindness in schools, kindness everywhere. But it's a really, really key character strength towards well-being, towards happiness. So even if your scope, if you're having a hard day, for thinking in a kind way towards yourself is so take it. Recognize that you are still exercising that muscle. You're still exercising that muscle of kindness. You have it in you. Now, maybe you're thinking, I kind of have this persona as a tough person, right? Or I have this persona of not being the kindest person, or this is how people know me, or this is the reputation I have. Okay, do you need to keep going with that? How much of your rationalization for maybe not being as kind as you would like to be is tied up in like an ego identity? Is that something that you can consider shifting? Again, all of these ways, baby steps. What would a baby step look like? And when we're desiring the outcome or desiring like a final state, if you want to be a kinder person and you feel like, oh, I'm such a bad person, I was so mean, I was such a, I yelled at my kids, whatever it is, I've had a fight with my blah, blah. That doesn't have to define you. It might make your work harder if you're wired maybe towards a more critical reaction. But you have the ability to learn how to be a kinder person, even if your environment told you otherwise, even if your life experience told you otherwise. It's in there. Now, because of the crazy intense times we're living in, there's not a lot of kindness when it comes to the national conversation, the cultural conversation. There's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of judgment and what would be the opposite? Like meanness if someone thinks differently than you, if someone believes differently than you. So how is that working out for you on a personal level to think that way, right? With a judgment, without kindness, without a generous assumption, without an open mind to someone who may think differently than you or be differently than you. How can we be kinder and catch ourselves if we make an assumption about someone or something that we may not have all the information? Is that a way that you can maybe explore using kindness as well? And just flip it. If the shoe was on the other foot, how would you want to be treated? Something to think about. So, when it comes to our interpersonal relationships, there are several things I'll share here now that make it easy to just kind of dial into kindness a little more. And if you're already doing all of these, that's awesome. And if not, this is a reminder. And if not, then, choose one and see how that goes for you. So one new way to try kindness could be mindful listening. What the heck is mindful listening? Well, when you're listening mindfully to someone, you're giving them your time, you're giving them your attention, you're paying attention to what someone is saying, not for the sake of being able to interject your own opinion, but for that sake of understanding, right? Again, from Stephen Covey's work, like seek first to understand, then be understood. When you seek to understand another person, that is using kindness, in addition to social intelligence, which we talked about earlier, but it's a kindness. Think of how you feel when someone really listened to you without the express purpose or the ultimate purpose of like contradicting you or showing you why you're wrong or sharing their viewpoint, but just listen to you. Giving somebody space to be is a kindness. Can you give someone space? Not to correct them, not to judge them, not to educate them, not to inform them, just to support them, just to be there for them. How about a smile? Here's another way. Can you smile at a stranger? Can you smile at someone you know? Give someone a smile. Already a smile communicates something warm and friendly and kind. Not that Duquesne smile, not that, the grimacing kind of, where your eyes don't crinkle up, right? You want like that kind of, you want your eyes to squish. If your eyes don't get involved, it's just you saw that? That was, no, not good. Genuine smile. We can smell disingenuity, is that the word? We can smell things when they're fake. Most people, I don't care how smart you are or think you are, like most people have that human sense of when someone is trying to BS them or just isn't authentic. So, be kind to them and be kind to yourself, and don't make any assumptions about anyone. I don't care how many degrees they have or don't have or what they do for a living. Everybody is deserving of a kind approach until proven otherwise, shall we say, okay? All right. What's another way to be kind? Do not interrupt and don't change the subject when someone is speaking. That's a kindness, okay? Again, all within reason. If someone is steamrolling and going on and has absolutely no clue, then that's like a different situation. But if you are giving someone your attention, give them your attention, okay? What's something else? Still working on this with my kids, but helping around the house, chores. Yes, it teaches responsibility. Yes, it's part of preparing them for life after they leave the home. But it's also a kindness to help out. Help out at school, help out at work. At work, do you do the bare minimum? Or at home? Or anywhere? Do you do the bare minimum? Or do you sometimes do a little more? Help out a little more? Volunteering, obviously, is a great example of a kindness. So every time you're volunteering, in addition to increasing the chances that you'll live a long life, that's one of the variables that came up in the research around blue zones, right? Because again, you're connected to that sense of meaning, something greater than yourself, something outside yourself. You're building community and you're doing like something good. Can you say hello and thank you? Can you use manners? Manners can be a kindness. Appreciation. Is there a kindness you can do in secret? One of the highest levels of charity, at least in Judaism, is to give anonymously, because it maintains, it keeps the dignity of the receiver. That would also be seen as a kindness. All right, so again, lots of rabbit holes to go down here on the internet, and lots of songs to support it. And think of ways to be kind to yourself and to others. This is a shorter one, but lots in here. And I will see you on the next way. Thanks for joining.